everybody. Welcome back to the CCSN podcast. I'm Chris here with Chase. Chase, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's Sunday. The Eagles just absolutely blew out the Giants 48-22. I'm feeling great, man. How about you?
Yeah, yeah, that was really fun to watch. That was men against boys right there. That Eagles Giants game. Ever since the beginning, it was just raps.
Yeah, after the first drive where they were really struggling to convert on, I think it was a 2nd and 6 play where Daniel Jones threw a beautiful ball, by the way, to Isaiah Hodgins it was pretty much triple coverage, and they were only able to get 6 yards out of a play that was pretty much perfect and executed to the exact T. I was like, yeah, they don't have the facilities to really hang with this team. It's just there's a talent difference here, and it's very obvious. And I think we've been saying that the whole year with the Giants. Very overrated. They had a very easy schedule. They played like the Bears early on in the season. They got the Commanders while they were very, very weak, and they banged out a couple of some surprising wins on the back of Brian Daboll mostly, but they don't have the talent. They just don't have the talent to compete with the higher end teams. 7-5, 7-5-1, I should say. That's a blessing for them right now. Like they should be shocked to be in that position.
Yeah, I mean today was pretty evident. The icing on the cake for me came on the fourth down Devontae Smith touchdown.
Yeah,
It was just beautiful right there. Like at that point, it was kind of if I was a Giants fan, the TV probably would have been muted at that point. You never
it's
turn it
funny.
off, but you mute
Yeah.
it. You mute it.
Yeah, after the Devontae one, it was really over. And it was only 14-0. That was the second touchdown of the game. But after that, there was the drop kick punt
Oh yeah.
that Jamie Gillian tried to pull out, which ended up leaving the Eagles on the 33-yard line, where AJ Brown caught that next play touchdown. I wasn't even excited. I was just like, okay, that's it. Like
That's that's
it's
what's supposed to
it's
happen.
about what we expected, right? Like this is a much better team, much better coach team, I'd say. I like Dable, but I do think Nick Sirianni and the Eagles defensive staff, especially, have done a much better job this season than what the Giants have done. So I think that
I,
all across the board, the Eagles are better.
I mean, absolutely, and it starts with Jalen Hurts for me, man. I mean, every single week, I feel like I see the new meme or the new Twitter picture going around with Jalen Hurts, and it's just another stat that he broke, and it's just like a cool picture of him. And this week, I literally, as soon as he came on the TV screen, I was like, that one's gonna be it. It's him sitting with like the Christmas Eagles hat on, and he has like the big blanket on, and it says most points scored in a 3 game span since like 1950 or whatever it was. And it's just Jalen Hurts again. I mean, this guy is a born leader. And I mean, I tweeted it today, but Howie Roseman does not get enough credit for drafting this guy right after giving Carson Wentz that contract extension. And man, I wish this podcast was born back then because as soon as he got drafted after the initial what the fuck was that, we were like, all right, makes sense. This is the guy. This is
I
the
wish
guy.
I wish I was active on Twitter when that pick happened because I was one of the only people in the goddamn world who was like, I love this pick. I did, and I know it sounds crazy for me to sit here and say it now, like, yeah, of course you did, but there was a moment where I really did love that pick for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts in college was really like you could see the flashes there. At Alabama, his first year, he was very bad, and then it started to get a little bit better. And then the Tua game where he got benched, and it was like, all right, those are kind of strange circumstances to get benched in. But once he was at Oklahoma, I mean, that last season, he was incredible. And the things that he did with his legs, you always see that drop. People that can do that. I mean, we saw Lamar Jackson go at the 32nd pick. I kind of like it was not a complete hidden talent in Jalen Hurts. And it really did surprise me that he fell as far as he did with how much quarterbacks are needed right now. But it raises the question, how valuable is really taking a quarterback first overall? Because let's look at all the first overall quarterbacks right now. I mean, or I should say, let's look at the best quarterbacks in the league. Pat Mahomes was the 10th pick. Josh Allen was about the 7th. Jalen Hurts was about like the 47th. Um, Joe Burrow, who's having an incredible season, he was the number 1 overall pick. That's the one name in recent memory that kind of trumps that. But like Jared Goff, man, like there's just a couple, and Jared Goff's playing fine, but there's just a couple of guys like it's not as sure of a thing as people might think. And the guy this year is Bryce Young, who I don't think is going to live up to that top 5 quarterback potential.
I could definitely see that. I mean, even this year with everyone, I mean, last year in the NFL draft, there's, oh, wait till next year. We have a plethora of NFL ready QBs. There's no one that's really blowing me away this year so far. I mean, maybe we can wait till the combine, but I'm gonna be honest, the combine doesn't really do that much for me. I mean, it's really cool to see, like, them put up really cool stats or just insanely athletic freaks go out there and showcase, and that's awesome, but as I said, we all remember watching Joe Burrow and saying, "Wow, this guy is going to come into the league, and he's going to change something," and CJ Stroud, Will Levis, I mean, I like these guys, but are they instant talents? I don't know, if I'm being quite honest.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is the fact that you can't bring a quarterback into the worst situation in football, which is what the number one pick is 99% of the time, and expect it to work out. There already has to be some developmental parts in place. Otherwise, you're really just praying that that number one pick at quarterback is Peyton Manning or it's Tom Brady type of guy. Like, and I know Tom Brady went sixth round, but you're hoping that it's that caliber of a player. And more often than not, it just isn't. So I genuinely believe that as we're starting to roll into draft season, my take here is if you're the Texans, you do not draft a quarterback. And
Yeah,
that's after watching them today and almost beating the Dallas Cowboys without playing a quarterback. And look, they were severely outmatched and they do not have much to go forward with. But if you were to drop Bryce Young on that team, it would not be much better. Like I genuinely do not think that they would figure anything out just by dropping a quarterback in there if it's not literally Peyton Manning.
yeah, I mean, this Texans team definitely has a lot of problems, and, going back to your point on Bryce Young, uh, this guy kinda struggled a little bit in the Alabama offense when he wasn't given Devontae Smith or the wide receiver corps that we've seen over the past with Alabama over the past couple of years, and, as you said, drop this guy into Houston next year where he's probably not even gonna have Brandon Cooks, and who we looking at is wide receiver 1 next year, Nico Collins. So that would be a huge drop off and just, for a 5'10" quarterback, that'd be a lot to go into.
And that's really what I'm getting with to here is yeah, we're talking about put Peyton Manning in there and it might work. But 5'10" quarterback's a lot different. Like these are guys with very obvious limitations. Like look at Kyler Murray. He is probably the perfect example of what a 5'10" quarterback could be. Has an incredible arm, does not take hits, is incredibly fast and elusive, gets good pocket, or he's very good in the pocket, is aware of pressure all the time, and he's just got some incredible arm talent. And yet he still struggles because just being 5'10" eliminates so much over the middle of the field. And I don't want to make this whole Bryce Young hate episode, which is not even what it's at all what's supposed to be about. But I just don't feel like that is the way to build your team. And just look around the league at teams that are built that way. It's not working. It really isn't.
I mean, 100%. I mean, going back to the original point of this with Jalen Hurts, he came into a franchise, who wasn't at the bottom of the league by any means. I mean, yes, when he got drafted that year was a complete disaster for Philadelphia, but he came into a team that had pieces. Took, maybe 2 years of construction. Maybe add to that he probably has a top three general manager in the whole sport right now, so that probably helps out. But as you said, you bring in a quarterback with a well-rounded team around you, you have a lot more chance of making him just have a successful career overall.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, you can't, and just circling it all back to the Eagles game, Jalen Hurts was a guy who came in the second round. He was not one of those first overall picks that was just dropped in, and he is a quarterback with limitations. His limitations are he can't throw the deep ball, and he struggles with the intermediate game. But with the Eagles, they were able to provide him with the league's best offensive line, and eventually with the talent at wide receiver to help him develop his game. Whereas with Bryce Young, I don't believe that screw Bryce Young. If you were to take Jalen Hurts as a prospect and drop him into the Texans, I don't think he'd ever develop because they're not going to give him those opportunities to rely on his strengths and neutralize his weaknesses while he works on them. That's just kind of like that's how I feel these bad teams kind of screw these quarterbacks over 99% of the time. I mean, look at the Buccaneers. They just with Jameis Winston, they just went all in on air raid instead of trying to dial it back a little bit. They just kind of they played only into his strengths and never tried to figure it out. So there's kind of like a balance that you got to do with that. But every single time I see this, it's like with the number one quarterbacks, you got, or not even just number one, with quarterbacks in general, you got to give them time to work on things because these are young guys coming into the league. Nobody's coming in as a polished, perfect prospect.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100% there. If I was the Texans this year, I would look at this year. I would go out and get a guy like Will Anderson, maybe, and I'm waiting for Caleb Williams. If I'm being completely honest, I feel like he is just the not the perfect prospect, but the best quarterback prospect we've at least seen since Trevor Lawrence, you could say. And as I said, none of these quarterbacks kind of move me in this draft. I'd rather build around via free agency in the draft and be able to put Caleb Williams, whoever you draft, in a better position.
I think the perfect to just wrap all this up, the perfect example of this is Alex Smith. Back in '05, he was drafted by the Niners, and he was supposed to be their franchise quarterback and come in and lead this team to their next era. Was not good for actually, he was the worst quarterback in the league for them for a long time. And it took until he was able to get into a position where he was at 30 years old in a system that played to his strengths and developed him the correct way for him to actually break out and everyone to say, hey, Alex Smith is actually a pretty good quarterback. He was just in some shitty situations, which is it. That is the whole point of all of this. Like, you can't just take him number one overall and drop him in there, which is, in my opinion, why taking a quarterback number one overall should not be as easy of a decision as it has been. Because look at these guys. Baker Mayfield is in here. Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, who's great, but he didn't last that long. Sam Bradford, Jake Long, Jamarcus Russell, Alex Smith, even Eli Manning, Carson Palmer. Like, these are good quarterbacks. David Carr, good quarterbacks, but they never get a chance to develop into what they're supposed to be because they're coming into the worst situation in football. That's what the number one pick is 99% of the time.
Absolutely. I mean, teams will definitely look to build around more. I feel like as the years go on, with all the evidence that we've seen. I mean, they were talking about it at the end of the game with Jalen Hurts. Um, they were kind of shooting off some other names where Sam Darnold was one of them, Josh Rosen was one of them. I don't buy it with everyone. I feel like some guys just don't have the skills, but I do get that argument 100%.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some guys that just aren't built for it. Ryan Leaf is one that comes to mind immediately. I saw that one of his things recently where he just wasn't in the right mental state at that time. And that's probably with a lot of guys. I mean, these guys are all drafted very high because they have very similar physical tools, but quarterback is the most mental position in any sport. There's so
Zach
much
Wilson's
processing,
a
mental head
key right
case.
there. Yep.
He's a mental midget. That's what he is. So there's just a lot that goes into taking a quarterback and having them come in to be your franchise guy. And it's why it's so confusing to some people why number one picks don't work, yet a 47th pick like Jalen Hurts can work. It's all about circumstances and what you come into. Like, the gap between those guys is not that big. It's really circumstantial. And another example of that is Brock Purdy today. Brock Purdy was able to come in and fill exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo did. He was a 7th-round pick. So I feel like that fairly wraps up this quarterback discussion, but I think that it's about, I don't think I'm too far off base with saying that they shouldn't draft Bryce Young number one for that reason.
I agree with you on that one. Well, to talk about one of those first overall picks who kind of converted his career, Jared Goff. I mean, this
Yes.
guy right now has been tearing it up the past couple of games. You know, today beat the 9-2 Minnesota Vikings at home. They were favored at home. A lot of people kind of were raising eyebrows at that, saying, "Who in God's name is favoring the Lions?" And Jared Goff showed us why today. I mean, another excellent outing, 3 touchdowns, over 250 yards today. Is this I mean, I've been seeing the narrative. Can you build around Jared Goff? Should the Lions draft a quarterback this draft, or should they wait it out? Because they have a lot of draft capital.
We've known what Jared Goff is his entire career. He's somebody that does not do very well under pressure at all, but outside of pressure, he's one of the most accurate arms we've ever seen. Like, from a clean pocket, Jared Goff is as close to Tom Brady as you can get, honestly. But that's the thing. It's only from a clean pocket. And where Tom Brady really excels is when he's under pressure and able to get it out quick. So while I don't think that Jared Goff is ever going to go into this MVP caliber player, I do think he sits around the Kirk Cousins caliber. I think that he's going to be a long-term starter and he's going to put up some very, very good career numbers where at the end of his career, he might not have the crazy win-loss ratio, but he's going to be like up there in terms of career totals. He's going to put up a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. I mean, I'm sure he's going to finish near the top of the league in yards this season. The last 3 weeks, it's 900 yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions against 3 really, really good teams right now. It's Buffalo, Jacksonville, who just pulled out a huge win against Tennessee. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then it was today. So big games that Jared Goff has been playing in against, and he's been playing very well. So it's not somebody that I think you're comfortable moving on with or moving on from, I should say. You give this guy another year, especially in a quarterback class that we talked about. It's not, there are no surefire hits in this class. But to play devil's advocate a little bit, to be fair, they are the team that's in the perfect position to drop a quarterback in and allow them to develop because they have incredible weapons, an incredible offensive line, and a very an intuitive head or offensive coordinator. I'm not really sure who it was that called the Penei Sewell play on fourth down today to get him, or on third down to get him a 10-yard catch, his first catch of his career to ice the game. But that really showed me that they got balls over there in Detroit and they're willing to go for it. And look, they've put on a lot of shows this year. They've gone out there and lit up some fireworks on offense. So I think that this is an offense capable of a lot. And if it's working under Jared Goff, you stick with it for right now, but understand the potential that if you can drop a young quarterback in there on a rookie deal and with this current system, go out there and make a lot of noise.
I mean, I agree with you on that one, but the Lions right now, they're gonna have probably 2 top 15 picks going in next year's draft, and as you said, if it's working with Jared Goff, I think Detroit is the team that say, "You know what? We finally have something that's kinda working. Let's stick with it for right now, see where we can go with it." And you can look at it from the other perspective. Their defense, downright horrible. I mean, Kirk Cousins, even though they lost today, set the all-time passing records for one game, today against Detroit with 410 yards. Justin Jefferson had over 200 yards. So there's just obvious flaws on the defensive end over there in Detroit. So, they could always look to beef up the defense and kind of just work around that and go with the 49ers type of or 49ers Dolphins type of play style with
I
he's go ahead.
I think that they're going to go with Anthony Richardson. I think that that makes the most sense. You've got Golf on another year of the deal. They're not going to pick high enough. Well, they will pick high enough to take a quarterback because of the Rams, but they're not going to be in the top five. So they'd be stuck with either Stroud or Levis instead of Young. So I think that it makes the most sense to try and see where Richardson falls and get some value with him because you're a team that can develop a guy like that and wait a year. Have him play behind Golf, who's a guy who can actually work from a clean pocket. And it would be funny because what a polar opposites in a quarterback room with Anthony Richardson and Jared Goff. But I feel like it would kind of work in a way, almost like Kirk Cousins being in a room with like Justin Jefferson. So it shouldn't work, but it does. So there's just that weird chemistry there.
Do you think he falls to like Malik Willis, like a third rounder or second
No,
rounder with Anthony
no,
Richardson?
I think he's got much better physical tools. I think he's like 4 inches tall, or not 4. I think it's about 2 or 3 inches taller. Has a lot more weight on him. I think that his college tape is like Malik Willis had no college tape. The reason that we were talking about Malik Willis going number one overall is because there was nobody there. Like if somebody's got to take a quarterback, right? Everybody needs a quarterback. Somebody's got to go. Malik Willis is the one that's got the tools, but there was like he's got more tools than everybody else, but there was really nobody there that you felt comfortable with taking, which is why Malik Willis fell so far. But I think Richardson, he's NFL size at 6'5", 230, got NFL speed, NFL arm. I really do think that he checks all the boxes except for the tape, which is why I think that he still will fall, but not as far as a guy like Willis, who doesn't really check all the boxes. He's a little short. He doesn't really have the accuracy that you want to see at all. And he's on the light side a little bit. So that's kind of where I stand on that one.
That would be very interesting. That would be very interesting, though. I mean, that would be honestly perfect for the Lions, though. Have another year to roll with golf, see if he's worthy. And you know what? I don't think that is a surefire out for Jared Goff. After 1 year, you're out. If he still keeps up the good play, hell, I could see him signing them to another 2 year deal, something like that. I don't think Jared Goff's ever going to persuade an NFL franchise to give him 25 plus million a year again. So
He already
we'll
did it
see what
once.
happens. Well, he did it once, but I don't know. When he got traded, what we all thought at first. But hey, this is a guy who has been rebounding his career this year, and good for him, honestly.
I've never hated golf. I always back in the 2017 draft, I was a golf over Wentz guy, ironically, considering I'm an Eagles fan. But I genuinely did think that golf had the stuff to be a long-term option at quarterback in the league, and I think he's kind of proven that he can. Like this is not a bad season at all for Jared Goff. This is going to end up with about He'll finish top 10 in yards, probably in the top 7, and he'll finish with 30, 35 touchdowns, maybe, and probably 30, and only less than 10 picks. So that's really a very impressive season considering the circumstances. Like, when's the last time you get that in Detroit? Can't have shit in
That is
Detroit.
true. Can't have shit in Detroit. That's right. All right, moving on to the Bengals versus the Browns game today. This was a very important game for the Bengals. I think they needed to get this win, and they did. Went into Cleveland, got it done. Wasn't that crazy of a game by anyone. Joe Burrow had a decent game, over 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception. But the boy Deshaun Watson, decent game, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and over 50% completion. Couldn't, but I'm still just not rooting for him in
Yeah, no,
any state.
we are actively rooting on Deshaun Watson's downfall here, and it's like, sorry, Cleveland, and it sucks because I did like a lot of the players on the Cleveland team. Like, I'm a huge Nick Chubb fan. Miles Garrett's incredible. Denzel Ward's one of my favorite corners in the league. I like JOK. Donovan Peoples-Jones is electric, man. There's a couple of guys on this team that I do really like, but then they just add him. And it makes it so unfun to watch. And it's every single game, the whole world is rooting against you. And you're not even a good team, but people are like highlighting you on the schedule because they want to go out there and kick your ass. That's literally what it is right now. And that's how it feels. Trey Hendrickson, he had one of those hits today, and it felt pretty good. He didn't get him enough, I mean, but there was the one after the whistle where Watson got drilled on the Hail Mary to end the half. I think it was Reader, maybe. I didn't get to see who exactly hit him, but he was throwing up a Hail Mary. He was 2 steps away, and he still drilled him after that, and no ref called it either. So I think those refs are family men as well. But I don't see what everybody else saw with Deshaun Watson right now. Like, I understand how great he played in 2020, and even without the allegations, take them out of the picture. This is a guy with 2 ACL tears, with accuracy issues, and really relies on his scrambling ability as an injury-prone player. You gave him $250 million guaranteed, and did not. You completely just like locked yourself into your roster. There is no wiggle room with this roster, and it's not a good roster, not a deep roster at all. They have just completely shut themselves in and said, if Deshaun Watson is not literally Patrick Mahomes, we are not winning anything. And I think that's just a crazy way to operate your team. Just absolutely absurd to go out there and try that.
My whole thing with the Cleveland Browns was when they were sitting there trying to make this trade, or going over the details, they had to sit there and say, this is worth it, everything considered,
Yeah.
what we have to trade, with the money we're gonna have to give this guy, all the allegations. This is worth it for this franchise who's gone through a tell, gone through everything, been the laughing stock of the league. Let's go out there and make probably the most, I'm looking for the word, like the media grabbing trade ever. I can't think of the word right now, but it's not all about the trade, it's about the story to go along with it. It's not a good story. And damn, it always just goes back to the Cleveland Browns. I mean, what a trade for them to make. And
Infamous,
I,
man. That's the
it's
only
just
word I
gonna
can think of. Just infamous. That's all this is.
it's just gonna go down as just awful. Like everything around. I mean, Deshaun Watson and this team is never going to win a Super Bowl. And as you said, they've locked themselves into this team for the next 4 to 5 years at this point. 50 million, is it 50 million plus a year?
50. Well, it's 5 to 50, but the first year is only like
A
$1.
dollar, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
so he
ridiculous.
doesn't. So I don't know how it's really panning out, but it should be around 50 a year, I'd expect. I mean, a
So let's
little
say
more than that.
48. We'll say 48,
Well,
40. We'll
well,
say
it would be
50.
more. We'll call it 50.
All right, we'll call it 50 right now. I mean, that is just so
I
much
feel
to
like I
work
could
with.
look
And
this up.
you could look it up. But as you said, there's tons of guys to like on this team. I mean, this was the team when Baker was drafted there. I feel like it was the feel good team, the Cleveland Browns. They
Absolutely.
were on the come up. This was a team that everyone was rooting for. We all loved the Nick Chubb, the Baker Mayfields, the Jarvis Landry. When they traded for Odell, we were like, finally, they have the missing piece, and they can finally rejoice again. And now it's just like, right back in the dumps. After LeBron left the Cleveland Cavaliers, they kind of went to the little thing. But they rebounded, though. They got back. The
It was
Browns,
5 years, 230.
oh God,
So
Jesus.
44 a year on average.
That is
Not
just
good.
still too
Not a good
much. Yeah.
contract. No. Um, but like they just hated Baker Mayfield that much that they had to go out there and do that. That was the move because Baker Mayfield was that bad. They had to sacrifice everything for this guy. And it's not paying off so far. And I don't think it's going to pay off. Like they're not going to make the playoffs. Obviously, I'm pretty sure they're eliminated at this point. If not, they're close. They're going to have another off season, but this off season is not one that really, I don't know. It doesn't entice me. I think Denzel Ward's a free agent this offseason. Unless he got paid. Well, no, he's
They didn't
yeah,
pay
no, he
him.
got paid. No, he got paid.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. I think it was like $45 million, but it wasn't too much. But they still have a lot of players on the roster that are going to be up for free agency. They're going to lose Kareem Hunt this offseason, which is going to completely screw up their two-headed monster. I mean, I know they've got Johnson, but Dearness Johnson is a fine fill-in behind a good offensive line. Their offensive line is taking a hit. They're not going to be able to completely rejuvenate that. Their interior of their D-line, we said this a couple times, it's fourth-round rookies in there, man. Like, there's just nobody impactful on the interior D-line. Same thing with the linebackers. Same thing with the secondary outside of Denzel Ward. So it's one of the worst defenses in football locked into that current roster. Not
I mean,
too many bad things I can say about the Browns.
this Denzel Ward contract, the cap hit after next year of $12 million, it's 23 million, 22 million, 28 million, and then $24 million on his age 30 season in 2027.
God damn. Who
So I
gave
mean,
Denzel Ward that? I like Denzel Ward. I really do. He's a good cornerback. But this is a guy that relies on his speed and his ability to close space. That is something that goes away very, very quickly. Look at Adoree Jackson. It went away the second he came into the NFL, but he was incredible at it in college. And even Akuda, who he was a little bit more physical, but he had that closing speed in college. He does not have it anymore. And as much as a great story we've made out of Jeff Akuda this season, how he's had a bounce back season, he's not a top tier cornerback. Not like he should have been, and not like he was going to be had he kept that same closing speed. Second Denzel Ward loses that, if and when that's going to be the worst contract in the league. A cornerback getting paid $30 million while you're paying a quarterback $50 million, and you have Myles Garrett as well with Amari Cooper. Man, that's a lot of money spread
and David
around.
Njoku,
Yes,
they're planning on
Njoku
paying him
too.
soon.
I love Njoku, but that's a guy that didn't they pay Njoku as well?
I
I
think they
believe so.
franchise tagged him last year.
Yes, they did franchise tag him.
Yeah.
But look, it's not really a good way to build the team. It's just mistake after mistake. And this is a team that's not making the playoffs. This roster is one of the
Exactly.
highest payrolls in the league. They're not making the playoffs. I don't know, man.
Browns
Horribly
and
run
Raiders,
franchise.
Browns and Raiders are kind of just in their own little bubble of just handing out huge contracts and then just winning 5 to 7 games. It's
There should
just
be
like
a there should be a Browns Raiders game at the end of the year every single season, and we just see what happens. I don't know what to call it, just like the shit bowl, but like
there's
just let them go at it. Just
no penalties called. Just
no
like let
penalties
them
called.
go.
Yeah.
Just
Oh my
let
god!
them
Imagine
go.
like Miles Garrett in that game with no penalties called. You just like ripping helmets off.
That would not be fun for
A
anybody
prime
involved.
Vontez perfect from the Raiders. And I mean, these teams have employed some funny players throughout history, man.
I
Both
mean,
of them,
shit, you
Johnny
can just
Manziel.
bring Antonio Brown back for that one game for the Raiders.
Just an
See what happens.
all time teams, all time Raiders and all
Oh
time,
God.
but like not like the all time greatest, just the all time players. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
we're not throwing
Exactly.
Jim Brown out there. We're throwing Peyton Hillis out there at running back for the Browns. We're not throwing. Damn, who's the Browns' best quarterback? Dude, who? We're throwing Kevin Couch out there. That's who we're throwing out there for the Browns.
Give me
Cody Kessler.
on it. If we're going like fun all time Raiders Browns game, I'm going with Johnny Manziel as my quarterback. I'm going
Well,
with
Johnny Manziel's the offensive coordinator.
oh, true,
He's a
true.
genius.
Where were we putting high 24/7 what's his
Josh
name?
Gordon.
Josh Gordon. Yeah.
Ooh, he's all over the field, man, or nowhere. He forgot to show up to this game, man.
He shows up like for what quarter he decides to come into. Like if he wants to come play the first, he'll play the first. Wants to sit out the second. Just depending on what he's feeling that day
He's
for
our
Josh
medicinal
Gordon.
trainer.
I feel like he'd be pretty good at that, honestly.
Good
You know,
pharmacist.
I feel like it's just time to get this game out of the way. I don't really want to talk about it that much. Speaking about like a hard hitting game, if the Browns and the Raiders had their fake game, Ravens versus Steelers today. I mean, we obviously saw why Mitchell Trubisky got benched. He got put in after Kenny Pickett got sent to concussion protocol, and wow, he was terrible today. 3 interceptions. Dude looked
He was
awful.
all right.
He looked
He was
bad.
bad. He was bad, but some of the like this is just an offense that nobody can work with. It's just bad. Matt Canada's calling bullshit plays every single play. It's just there's nothing creative about this offense. They're motioning for no reason. Like they'll just bring somebody across and nobody like the defense will like point at them and then just not care because they already have somebody in the same exact spot that like Deontay Johnson's motioning over for. Deontay Johnson doesn't have a receiving touchdown this year. That is not right. It's just not right. This is a guy who, like, throw him on the Packers. He's putting up 1,200
Uh,
yards and 10
Chase, I
touchdowns.
swear to God, I was just gonna say that. Like, if there was a guy who should have got traded and it made sense this offseason to be on the Packers, it was Deontay Johnson. I mean, his name was thrown around in the rumors every now and then. He got that 2 year little
Yeah, they
extension.
paid him instead.
I would
Like, that
not be
made no sense
surprised
to
to
me.
see him moved. 1 year left on his deal, but like they're not
Yeah,
gonna get nearly. Do you think they're gonna get
they
as
ruined,
much?
no, they ruined
They ruin
their
any
trade
value.
value because
Yeah,
he's going to hit like 900 yards and no touchdowns this year. Like that. I mean, it's a good season. Throw up 900 yards, but gotta get,
no
if you don't get
touchdown.
into the end zone, it's really going to just knock your value. But I think that's at the end of the day, what might catalyze a trade to the Packers. The fact that he just isn't as valuable anymore. They're not going to have to give up a higher pick because we know the Packers just aren't willing to do it. But look, Mitch Trubisky was not good today. The Steelers offense as a whole was not good today. Neither offense was really good, but it was Huntley and then it was Anthony Brown or
Brown.
Anthony
Yeah,
yeah Anthony Brown, and it just wasn't pretty. It wasn't. They
Najee.
need Lamar Jackson. Like I'm very the takeaways from this game. I have two of them. Lamar Jackson is the entire Ravens offense. Without him, they are literally nothing. They will lose a lot of games without Lamar Jackson. On the other side, Kenny Pickett has gone into concussion protocol 2 times in like, what is it, 6 weeks now? That's not good for a quarterback. You do not want to see your quarterback getting hit in the head that many times, especially not his rookie year.
Absolutely. I mean, I just wanted to give a little shout out to J.K. Dobbins, though. Just came back off IR, 120 yards and a touchdown. That's pretty
Yeah,
damn good
look, he
for
had
your first game back.
he had that breakout game or breakout run, but it's not there. He would score. J.K. Dobbins in like 2018 would have walked right in for a touchdown on that play. It's just he started hobbling, man, towards the end of the run. He got caught from behind, and that was like 90% of his yardage today. And I love like J.K. Dobbins. You go back to the first episodes of this podcast, he was like the guy. Like I was expecting him to come back and be a fantasy league winner, be like the top tier guy, be just as good because when he had played the season before he went down, that was one of the most explosive running backs I've ever seen. Like 6 yards a carry. He had like 900 yards and he was just breaking off big play after big play, making people miss. But he doesn't have that explosiveness in him anymore. It's sad to see, but at this point, he's more of a power back than anything. And that's just not his frame. So he had a good game today. No hating on that. Like it was great to see him put up that 120 yards. It was great to see him hit the end zone again, but he doesn't have the juice that he used to have, which really does make me sad.
I mean, if you want to talk about not having the juice anymore, flip over to the other side, Najee Harris. I mean, this was a
He
guy
never
who
had
coming
juice.
in last year. I mean, hey, we talked about it. We probably talked about fantasy 5,000 times, but I specifically remember like earlier episodes, before fantasy, we were saying, don't draft this guy. I mean, his flats were inflated last year, kind of a better team, I guess you could say. And what happened? I mean, this guy just looks awful. 2.2 yards per carry today. I mean, it's the same thing every single week for Najee Harris. Do you think it's like a change of scenery next year, or they're going to go at it again? Because I mean, I feel like running back is so interchangeable these days. Like they didn't pay him yet. There's really nothing hanging on this guy. I mean, other than the fact that he was a first round pick, like
You see,
that was
here's
just
the
crazy.
problem. Najee Harris would work fine behind a good run blocking or offensive line that gets push up front and he's able to turn out 4, 5 yards a carry. Just run behind or between the tackles and turn out 5 yards a carry, fall forward. and just be a fine back. You don't have to break anything off because he's not capable of doing that. He doesn't have long speed. He's never had long speed. He's never had short bursts either. What he is 200 and like 2,000 pounds. He weighs a ton, and he's got a stiff arm that's absolutely disgusting. That's what Najee Harris has working for him, but he doesn't get to use any of that in his game right now when he's getting tackled behind the line. He's not making people miss. That's never been Najee Harris. He's the guy that's going to fall forward, but when you're getting hit behind the line, you're falling forward for 0 yards or you're falling forward for 1 yard. So that's kind of the problem that I'm seeing with this team right now is they're not getting any push up front. Najee Harris doesn't have the burst within him to make plays outside of that. And the guy behind him, Jaylen Warren, does have the burst, but he doesn't have any of the physical tools. So he's able to make a play every now and then that looks pretty good. That'll have people thinking, well, what are we doing with Najee Harris then? But at the end of the day, it's really a fundamental problem with the Steelers' offense and their offensive line in general, which it's been falling apart for years now. They lost Pouncey, DeCastro, Villanueva. God, I'm blanking on the right tackle's name as well. God, he was really good, but they lost him. They lost their entire offensive line in a very short period of time. So it's just not something that you rebound from quickly. I think we're going to see a bad Steelers team for a few years here.
I wonder what the Pittsburgh Steelers go from this offseason. Like, do you just accept and you finally rebuild? You trade, all your bigger pieces, or let them walk, whatever it is, because the Steelers, for as long as I've been around, they've just been one of the most respected teams in the league. And as you said, I think we are headed towards a rebuild in the Steelers organization.
Not yet. They're on the Broncos track right now. I think they're going to take the Broncos route, which is they have a very good defense with top tier players. They're not going to let TJ Watt walk. Never in hell will TJ Watt leave Pittsburgh. And as long as he's around, they're going to be at least competitive. And if TJ Watt's around, Minka's not going anywhere. They just signed the guy. And you've got the good linebacker duo on the interior. You've got Highsmith, who's had a very good productive season. He's got 10 sacks this year. And they've got some decent younger pieces on their defense. I think that what they're going to do is continue to try and make their defense a top tier defense by adding a cornerback, which is the one flaw that they've had, and trying to tell themselves that we'll add a cornerback and we'll try and tape up our offensive line with some free agents and maybe a lineman in the draft. And we're going to roll it in with this team next year, just slightly improved. But you're also going to have to get rid of Matt Canada. So it's going to be an entirely new offense for a quarterback coming back on his second year. And it's going to be completely just disarray and a lot of turnover. I don't think that's a way to run your team. I think that the way to run an organization is through stability. I think that this is going to ultimately bite the Steelers in the ass by not blowing it up. And this comes down to making the wrong decision at quarterback. I think that if you've got a good quarterback in there, it really alleviates a lot of pain that you've got to deal with right now. Because going back and forth between Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky makes a bad offense look like the worst offense of all time.
Absolutely. I mean, do you go with a quarterback this draft that you have the pick, or do you think you go offensive lineman?
I have been vocal in saying, I've been saying this since before the season. You can go back and watch the tapes that the Steelers are going to need another quarterback this offseason. This was after they drafted Kenny Pickett, and everyone was like, what? But at the end of the day, it was so obvious that guy's not a guy that's going to turn a franchise around, and the Steelers are not a franchise that's in a position, which this ties extremely back to what we were talking about at the opening of the episode. The Steelers are not in a position to develop a young quarterback. They don't have the talent around him, and maybe they could have tricked themselves into believing that they did with Najee Harris and with Claypool and with Pickens and with Johnson. That sounds like good weapons, but it takes more than that. It takes a system that you can put him into, not just guys around him that you think have high enough ceilings to support him. That wasn't going to work.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with the Steelers going into next offseason. But as I said, I think they're kind of play the Daniel Jones track. If we're talking about tracks in the NFL, they're not gonna want to admit it. They're gonna hold on to him for the next 2 or 3 years, and that's really gonna be it with the Steelers, in my
I think
opinion.
Daniel Jones is much better than Kenny Pickett. Look, man, Daniel Jones is not great, but he has the arm strength to make the throws downfield. He's got some good zip on the intermediate throws. He does not have good pocket presence. That's been a huge issue for him, but he's been protecting the ball a little bit more, which is something I wasn't sure that he was able to do. So, and while he's not a good quarterback, and I wouldn't really build my team with Daniel Jones as a long-term option. I think he can be a fine bridge quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I'm looking at with Kenny Pickett. I feel like over the past couple of years with Daniel Jones, there's always been the narrative that, you know what, this guy can be good, but this guy can be better. You know, guys that come to mind instantly is like Justin Fields. That was the big name on draft night that everyone thought the Giants were going to finally bite the bullet, say we messed up, take Justin Fields. They didn't. And you know what? As you said, Daniel Jones has made the improvements over the last couple of years. 1,000% agree with you on that. But is this the guy who can win a Super Bowl at the end of the
Oh my
day?
god, man. That just like hit me like that whole situation just finally fully settled in for me. What happened between the Giants and the Bears. They traded out of the Justin Fields pick, out of the Justin Fields pick for Kadarius Toney to move
Yep.
back and get Kadarius Toney. And they've got an extra first round pick from that. Kudos to them. It ended up being what? Thibodeau? Was that the Thibodeau pick? Sure.
I think it was. It was one of
Yeah.
those.
It was the Thibodeau pick, but like that does not like an edge rusher and a wide receiver who was off your roster almost immediately. And by the way, an edge rusher with injury history, which never lasts long. Like,
And I,
imagine talk about all the edge rushers that have injury history coming into the league that don't have good ankle bend coming into the league. How long do they last? They don't last long. A quarterback is the number one position you're trying to fill. Daniel Jones was not the guy. You had a new staff coming in literally just a year. You knew like that Judge staff was never going to last. They had a new staff coming in. They had a chance to get a new quarterback. Weren't willing to make that move, and instead they went back for Kadarius Toney and one of Thibodeau or Evan Neal. I can't really know for sure which one right now, but
not to
I feel like I
mention
should know that.
Tony had that one game. He literally had one game as a New York Giant, and it was
Mm-hmm.
last year. It was probably like week 5, week 6, and everyone was like, maybe he is a god. Maybe he's gonna be
11
worth
for
it.
189, man. He was crazy that game.
And then that was it with Cardarius Tony. Like it's just crazy. That's a guy who has so much talent in this world, and I still think on the Chiefs he still has a
He's
shot.
he's out again. Out again today. He's been out for the last 3 weeks. The hamstring injury. He got the hamstring injury way too early for success. Like the once you get the hamstring injury, you don't recover from that. James Harden's one guy. He's never getting that burst back. Never getting the burst back. Neither is Julio Jones. And these guys, that normally happens later in their career where it kind of they don't get the end of career that most people get because of the hammy, but they still had those prime years where they were healthy. Tony's never going to get that. He's already too injured. So I do think they made the right move moving on from him. But the fact that they ever made that move to move back to get Tony instead and not invest in a quarterback, kind of crazy to me. But I guess that was their plan going into the draft. I remember they were trying to get Devontae Smith that year, and then the Eagles jumped them. Which, man, that's another thing that's going to go down in like that's a history move. Like they traded with the Cowboys to jump the Giants and steal the wide receiver that they were the Heisman wide receiver that the Giants were like coveting. That's kind of
That
crazy.
was that was supposed to be the Kenny Galladay Devontae Smith duo. I remember those days of Giants fans. It
Man,
was supposed to be that was the thing with Daniel Jones. As I think is going to be the thing with Kenny Pickett. It all comes down to their fan base backing the hell out of them. I mean, I remember with Daniel Jones this offseason in particular. After we sign Galladay and Slayton comes back healthy and we uh, what's his name draft Devontae Smith, game over. We're gonna see the real Daniel Jones. Like it's always the same narrative, as I said, but this guy is just not somebody who can win a Super Bowl in my eyes, unless he's in a perfect situation. Throw him in San Francisco. I bet he could probably get you to the playoffs, but
Nick Foles won a Super Bowl, man. It's so hard to tell who like there's the isolated incidents of like five quarterbacks winning like five random quarterbacks that won Super Bowls and Nick Foles is one of them. But like other than that, it's really just the top guys. It's Tom Brady, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Peyton Manning. It's like it's
and look at
those guys win the Super Bowls.
and look at the teams for like those five for the Bears teams when they won the Super Bowl. It was all that defense. It was never the quarterback. And
Yeah.
Chicago has never had like a good quarterback. I always
The
think that is like the craziest thing in sports. A
and
great quarterback, I
the
guess you could
crazy
say.
part about that is the only one time that it wasn't the defenses that showed out in the runs was the Nick Foles run. And it's crazy to
Yeah.
say that like I think you can almost separate that and put that 2017, and this is going to sound absolutely crazy. You can put that 2017 Nick Foles run in with the top quarterbacks of all time. For those few stretches at towards the end of the year or that few game stretch in the end of the year in the playoffs, Nick Foles, especially in the Super Bowl where he played a near perfect game, was about as good as any other quarterback that you could find anywhere. Literally anywhere. You put Joe Montana into his shoes in that game, I don't think that he outperforms him, which is why I think that even then it might not even be isolated incidents. Like the good quarterback, like the top tier quarterbacks, the guys that are performing at that top tier level, they win in the playoffs.
I
That's just
mean,
how
hell,
it is.
we're an Alshon Jeffrey catch away from saying Nick Foles
We're
repeated
done.
twice with the Eagles. So I mean, that's just a different circumstance. Nick Foles will always be such a weird, like a great story, but like such a weird story. Like if he stayed on the right track, I really do feel like he could have been just like so good,
A lot
man.
of people forget the
Yes,
27 touchdown, two interception season. Like he was really good, man. He
like
had
that
a very
seven
good start
touchdown
to his
game against the
career.
Raiders. Like
Kind of inflated the numbers a bit, but it's all right. He was great.
I remember watching that game though. I was like, oh my God, like that was a great season, man. Shout
Yeah,
out
you have
Nick
Tom
Foles.
Brady. Yeah.
Shout out
Hey,
Nick Foles.
shout out Nick. Can't say a bad thing about the guy. Deserves the
Uh,
statue he has.
hell yeah, 100%. Would you say he's the best quarterback in Philadelphia history?
No, no,
Because that's always debate I see. Because
no,
they're always saying, "No, he's the one who won it." Who would you
no.
say? Donovan McNabb?
Mm, no, I'm not a McNabb guy. I don't. I'll go Cunningham. I'm a
Yeah.
Cunningham guy. I've always been a Cunningham guy, and he might not have had the best like. Nah, I do feel like he had better numbers than Foles, and I feel like if you were like Cunningham was way ahead of his time, man. That's all I can say.
Oh yeah. Well, then he finally got traded and was fantastic on
Yeah,
Minnesota. So that just goes to show. But right now, I mean, this Chiefs Broncos game, man, how predictable. They're up 20-0 right now in the end of the second quarter, the Chiefs, obviously, but they're in a rain
yeah.
delay right now or some type of delay. Like that
There's
was
a
the most
delay in
predictable.
that game.
It just
That's
says delay
interesting.
right now. And Panthers right now up 17-7 on the Seahawks. That's the no Kenneth Walker effect with Geno Smith. Geno Smith
Sure.
right now 66 yards, one touchdown, one interception. Only 8 attempts right now, which is a little weird. But
They're
Sam
counting
Darnold,
him out.
man, they're counting Sam Darnold out, man. 9 for 10, 90 yards and a touchdown right now against that Seattle defense. He's
Right.
looking good right now.
All right. As good as it's as good as Sam Darnold's looked his entire career, I guess. But if we want
I
to
will go ahead.
the if we want to talk about Carolina quarterbacks for a minute, let's talk about the one that just got cut. And we didn't get to cover this game because we didn't have our Friday post this week. But Baker Mayfield, he that last drive was something magical, man. Do like what is his future in the league? Like what goes on from here? Does Matt Stafford continue to be the quarterback of the Rams? I like what's the deal with that? Because Matt Stafford's injury is bad.
I mean, I'm not ready to. I listen. I loved Baker Mayfield when he got drafted. I've always been a big Baker guy. Like this is a guy you just like to root for in Baker Mayfield. I mean, when we saw that game-winning drive, I was smiling when I saw him headbutting his teammates on the sideline
Yep.
with no helmet. Like all of that was great. He came into this game with one day of practice under his belt and absolutely showed out. Can't take anything away from him there. Like I think it's just a cool story right now, and we kind of have to see what happens. Like the Rams just extended Matthew Stafford, so I'm really not sure that they're ready to just move on yet.
Yeah.
Like just gifting Matthew Stafford this free money. So if anything, I think if Baker Mayfield starts the next couple of games, starts the rest of the season, let's just say, has a good year. I mean, maybe he finds a starting role somewhere that absolutely needs it next year, but I think he locks himself into a good backup position if anything. I'm
But
not
like
gonna let
who?
one game.
Yeah,
Eh,
exactly. He's not gonna. It was more of a leading question. I was trying to get you on that one because I understand the Baker love, and I was on that too for a while. But yeah, it was fine. Baker Mayfield missed a lot of throws. He missed a lot of throws that he should have made. That pick at the end of the game, he got called back, but he threw it, and it was not on target. There was two people in the area, and he threw it to the safety over top. He overthrew the ball, no touch on it, and that's what we've seen from Baker. And Baker's another one of those guys who doesn't have the mental processing skills to last long in the league. So if it's not with like a team like the Rams where they have a coach like Sean McVay who can take a lot of that pressure off of him, I don't see Baker succeeding anywhere, even if he goes and gets another job. But even like I don't see a team that would be willing to go in and make that move for him because there was only one team in on the market for Baker this offseason. It was Carolina, and it was not a big market. So I don't see a world where he ends up getting a starting job. Maybe if he like you said comes in and lights it up for the rest of the few games here, but with it's very unlikely. It's not like he lit it up against the Raiders, who have a very weak defense, and they don't have much talent. He's throwing to Ben Skoranek out there.
I mean, yeah, Baker Mayfield, I think, is just going to be a really good backup for the next couple of years, and we'll see him start every now. He'll take the Jacoby Brissett role, I guess you could say. I think that's a good route to put him on. Always a reliable backup. He'll start a couple of games when your starter goes out, but is he ever going to absolutely lead a team and be named captain again? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think that's a crazy take. Brissett may be a little bit better. He's got more physical tools, but I think that Baker will probably stick around. I don't think he's going to be Johnny Manziel.
No, 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 no. He's more to be Johnny Manziel. You got to be pretty damn bad. You got to do a
Johnny
lot of things
Manziel's
wrong.
career touchdown to interception ratio is like 4-7. Like he threw 4 touchdowns in his career before he just didn't play again. So that I think Baker's thrown probably over 100 at this point. So he's already got a much more accomplished career than his comparison there, which it's not too fair of a
That's
comparison, but it's a funny one.
it's a lot to yeah. It's not a lot to say about a guy who's
Yeah.
saying they're a little bit better
Baker
than Johnny
actually
Manziel.
he has not hit the 100 mark. He is at 99. Never
Ooh,
mind. Maybe he
99
is
how many
Johnny.
interceptions?
42. It's not. I mean, it's not a bad. It's literally not a bad ratio. But like, we've seen the tape.
Yeah,
We know what he
the
is.
offenses were structured around that. Make it a lot easier for
Oh,
Baker.
come on. I didn't give my man Johnny Manziel enough credit. It's 7 touchdowns to 7 interceptions in his career.
Shout out Johnny, man. I mean, we'll always
Johnny
remember him
football.
giving the finger to the sideline, the opposite sideline. I remember watching that game live, and I was just like, "Come on, Johnny." I always defended that
You
man.
can't do that. You can't do it, John. But
But anyway, back from our we always Johnny Manziel always like somehow comes up in like these conversations,
for
like
good
no
reason.
matter what, he just comes up. But anyway, talking about an actual first pick that seems to be living up to the hype, Trevor Lawrence today, man. I mean, absolutely killed this Titans defense. 368 yards, 4 total touchdowns, including one rushing touchdown, which was the only rushing touchdown of the day for Jacksonville. I mean, we've been saying it all season, at least me, with this part. I mean, I just had to see some more consistency with Trevor Lawrence before I finally was all in on this guy. But I'm going to be honest, I'm really close. I'm really close to being all in with Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, I'm all in. I've been all in for the last few weeks with Trevor Lawrence, but he's pissing me off because we had our post on Instagram at CCSN Sports. If you want to go check it out, our NFL Week 13 post where we gave our hot takes. And my hot take for that last week was that Trevor Lawrence would build on his huge performance and come in and throw another 300-yard, 3 touchdown game. He didn't do it. Instead, he did it today, which it made me very happy to see that because I'm a huge Trevor Lawrence fan at this point. But couldn't have given it just another week earlier, man. Make me right. But hey, look, he ended up making my prediction come true, whether it be a week later or whatever. But he beat a very good, talented team in the Titans, who that's a team he's gonna have to beat for his career. Like that is the team to beat in the division. So hey, that's a good start there. They got over the Derrick Henry hump where he scored 100 or had 100 yards in the first quarter, and pretty much nothing after that, that's impressive to keep that guy in check. So I'm not completely sold on the Jags as a team yet. I think they've got a little bit of work to do. Evan Ingram had a great game. I still don't trust him as a long-term option. Zay Jones is fine. Their offense isn't what really scares me. It's their interior, their D line, and they just allow too many rushing yards. They just straight up do. But that's a fairly easy thing to fix. There's a lot of 300-pound guys that you can just shove in the middle. How did the Eagles fix that run game? They signed guys off the street, Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph. Once you get to a point where you're competing and guys want to come play with you, you can find guys to fill those holes.
Exactly. I mean, this is a team that's going to have money over the next couple of years. They still have a good amount of draft picks. I think Jacksonville's on the right path. I think they're going to win the division next year, if I'm being totally honest.
They really need to because they need to get rid of the Jags tax. You cannot have a Jags tax in free agency when you're already one of the lower payrolls in the league. Like people have to get paid more to come to Jacksonville, and you just when you're trying to fill out a roster like a top to bottom roster, you can't operate like that. You can't be playing average players more just because you're Jacksonville. It's just and it comes down to you need to get Shad Khan the fuck out of there. Like you ran right into Trevor Lawrence, and God bless him for not screwing that up and taking Justin Fields. But that's like if that's the one thing you do right in your career, it's not something to be proud of. Like any third grader could have turned Madden on and saw a big board of like Trevor Lawrence who had A plus A plus A plus A plus right there and said number one pick. Sure, like it's not that's not impressive to me, and I don't think it should be, especially because this is the same guy that I hired, Urban Meyer.
Yeah, true.
Enough
I
said.
mean, unless he decides to sell the team and all of the Twitter hate gets to him, I think he's went right in his ways for right now. I don't think he's
Yeah,
going anywhere,
yeah, that's right.
sadly.
It's a profitable business for him. So why would he sell it?
For you and all the Jacksonville Jaguars fans out there, I don't think it's happening anytime
Just
soon.
sell it for me.
I mean, maybe if what do you think is going to happen with the Washington Commanders this offseason? I
They're
mean,
going to be forced to sell because
I really hope so.
Snyder already got found like guilty pretty much. Like they found that he was enabling the culture that they've been trying to prove that he was enabling, which tells me that they're going to make something happen. But the part about this that interests me the most is Jerry Jones, because Jerry Jones is the only person, the only owner in the league that supports like publicly is out there supporting Dan Snyder. And he's supporting a guy that's running from the law, literally on a boat trying to escape, did not show up for anything. Like I something about Jerry Jones is going to come out in this investigation that he does not want out because he's been pushing back against this for the longest time. And you can only push back so long. I think, God, this is going to sound horrible, but I think he's pushing back until he's no longer around to see what happens because there's some real shit coming back for Jerry. And this is not the most perfect person. Like, this is a guy who just a few months ago, that picture came out of him stopping students, African American students, from coming into his school as a teenager. This is like there is some shit about Jerry Jones that he's got some skeletons in the closet. He did not get to where he is today and create this whole Jerry's world without stepping over some people. I can
100%.
guarantee that.
I mean, this was the guy in the owners' meetings a couple weeks ago who said, "Don't fuck with me" to everybody in that room. So, Jerry Jones has always been someone as we've been talking about. I just wouldn't want to fuck with him. Fuck with him if I'm being totally honest. As you said,
Somebody's
we
gonna.
see
Too many people have gone
somebody.
way too long letting this motherfucker just put his greasy hands on everything. I think that it's about time for this guy to get called out. I genuinely like. Man, I'm not even gonna say that because, but like Jerry Jones is just not like right. He's just not
Well,
like the person you want running it and being a public voice for your team.
I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, even after you said that picture aired out, it was kind of just like it was out on social media for one day, and
Well,
that
Dak
was it.
Prescott came in and was like, "Bo, I think we need to forgive because you can learn, and we all like people learn." And I genuinely believe that is a good idea to have if somebody shows progress. If you see progress within a person. Jerry Jones, his entire career, like as long as I've known who Jerry Jones is, he's been the controversial sports owner who says things out of line but gets away with it because of his money. How long has he really got like he's just been getting away with this shit forever? How many times do you think he stepped out of line and got it covered up? Is really what I'm thinking. And that's what I think he's worried about here with because there's no real reason to support Dan Snyder other than selfish reasons because it's very obvious the shit that he's gone through or the shit that he's done. The evidence of the harassment in the workplace in Washington with the cheerleaders there's so much evidence. I encourage everybody to go read the Sports Illustrated article about the Dan Snyder's regime in Washington because it is horrible, and the fact that anybody could come out and publicly support those actions tells me that there's an ulterior motive to that, because no right human being looks at that and says, that's right, that's what should be done, and I'm gonna back that with my voice and my money. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a franchise who's needed a new leader for many years now, and I mean, I hope the NFL forces them to sell. But money talks. We'll see what happens. But I really hope that they're forced to sell. I hope they get a new owner this offseason. I hope they finally put some care into this team for once in Washington. I mean, that stadium has been known to be like the worst in all of sports, or one of the worst, and at least in the NFL. So just for tons of reasons, personal reasons, facility reasons, get this guy out of Washington.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that, and I think the majority of the world is.
And on Jerry Jones, I'm excited to see the documentary in a couple of years, just about like everything that goes down with him once it's all out. But the question is he gonna be willing to put that out? We'll see
Oh no,
though.
but he won't be. Father Time never loses. That's how I'll end that. Father Time has never lost a battle in his life.
You are right with that one. Well, LeBron James. Anyway, Jets
It's
versus the
ongoing.
Bills. It's ongoing. Yeah, but I feel like if you're gonna talk about, all right, not to get LeBron versus Father Time right now, but man, 38 years old, still putting up 30 plus points. When does LeBron finally beat Father Time officially? Like what year does he have to get to?
He has
41?
to he has to outlast somebody who like was not even alive when he came into the league. He has to be like in the league for like there needs to be a 10-year vet that's been in the league that was not even alive when LeBron was born, and then they retire and LeBron's still hooping. That's when he beats Father Time.
Someone has to look that up. Like who that would make sense with.
It would
That
I
would be
mean,
funny.
it would have to be the best option could have been like Josh Primo, who is 18. So but
I don't know what happened with Josh.
yeah, Josh Primo ended up ruining that for us.
Thanks a lot, Josh Primo. But
God damn it.
we'll figure that out someday. Anyway, I just wanted to wrap this up. One more game, which I found very interesting, that has to go with the wild card in the AFC. The Jets versus the Bills. Now, the Jets right now, this is a team I was pretty high on going into this season. I really liked just the structure. They came back to earth as of recently. They're 7-6 right now. Does this team make the playoffs? Because I think right now where they're
Yeah.
sitting, they would have to have a lot of things go right for them, and I think it's the run's over in New
Yeah,
York.
I agree. And it was fun with Mike White, and it's not like I've seen him make some really good throws, but he's another one of those guys where I don't know that he's got the mental processing ability. And it's not on him. Like he shouldn't have to. Like this was not a top pick that's coming. This is like an undrafted player pretty much. That got cut from the Cowboys. He didn't even make their practice squad. He didn't even get a shot anywhere. The fact that he's done what he's done is incredible. But Jets fans are looking at him as their future. They're looking to him to be their future right now. You cannot do that. That is not like that's going to blow up in your face if you give this guy another year. He's just not the kind of guy. He's a good backup. He's a great backup. You cannot start him on your team.
I wonder where the Jets go from here. Like this offseason, do you think they're looking at the draft, or are you looking to get down and dirty via free agency or trade? Because I really do think if you add a elite quarterback, or I don't even know, 85 overall, I'm just going to go by Madden ratings here, 85 overall plus, that really elevates this roster in New York. I mean, you were dealing with Zach Wilson for a lot of people were calling, especially after that Patriots game, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, if not the worst. I mean, after that game, that was downright awful. The Jets should have won that game. There were a lot of games this year that the Jets could have won if it wasn't because of their play QB call or QB play, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, but who's available at quarterback? Like who's trading? I mean, Lamar Jackson's a good name. Lamar Jackson's a big name who might be available this offseason. If the Jets can go make that move, they can. But That's a tough one. I don't know if I'm willing
I
to
think
predict that the Jets are going after Lamar.
I think it comes down to, Lamar Jackson situation, obviously, but I think it's not that big of an upgrade, obviously, but I think Jimmy G is going to be a Jet next offseason. I really
Okay.
do.
Okay.
I think that's the best upgrade you can go with of right now. That's the thing with the NFL, man. The QBs never hit the free agency market, the elite
Yeah.
ones,
Upgrade to a guy that a team's been trying to upgrade from for years.
not years, two
Years.
years,
3 years.
2 years.
They got themselves into a position to upgrade, but they've been trying to upgrade from Jimmy for a minute. As soon as they lost the Super Bowl, they were like, "Yeah, yeah, Jimmy's not the guy. He's not the guy."
Eh, well, I'm not
Ask
gonna
Emmanuel.
get
Ask
into.
Emmanuel Sanders how he feels.
Okay, I will ask Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah,
I'll
and he'll
DM
tell you
him
that
right
he had.
after this.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you could ask a lot of other guys, and they really like Jimmy Garoppolo. But anyway, I'm not going to go on the Jimmy Garoppolo talk right now because we all know our opinions on him. But
He
yeah,
sucks.
This Bills Jets game, I think the Bills kind of put themselves right in the comfortable seat for the second spot in the AFC, and the Jets took themselves out of it, and that's kind of the end of this miracle run in the Meadowlands. We'll see what happens next year. See if they can break the streak
It was
of
fun while it lasted.
losses.
Look, it's a good season for the Jets. They were not supposed to be in this position. So, look, at the end of the year, it's a good season. Salah was successful. Joe Douglas has brought in a good roster. Their rookie class has shown a lot of strides. I think this is a positive season. It was honestly a positive game for them. Like, they did not play bad to hold the Bills to 20 and to score 12 on them. It's not a bad loss. It's really not.
Not at all. I mean, hey, we'll see what happens going to next year. I hope they make the upgraded quarterback, but we'll see. Maybe they stay with Zach Wilson. We never really know.
Yeah,
Um,
probably not. I'm sitting here looking at Johnny Manziel's Pro Football Focus page, and they've got player news feed under it, and the players that I guess they compare Johnny Manziel to. Zach Wilson is at the point of no return at the quarterback position. Blake Bortles is not planning to continue his efforts at returning. But there's just a bunch of really bad quarterbacks. Hoyer the Destroyer, Brian Hoyer's one here. Mitch Trubisky. So Zach Wilson's name is in with these guys. At that, like once you're grouped in with the Sam Darnolds, the Blake Bortles, the Mitch Trubisky's, there's no getting out, man. There's just not. Because
yeah, I mean,
and I think that's the perfect way to tie this all together. It comes back to the very beginning of the episode. If you're not in a good position to develop, which those quarterbacks are never going to be put in a good position to develop again, Zach Wilson's not getting a job from like the Niners. They're not going to put him in a position, or they're not going to say, "Hey, yeah, come on, Zach, we'll try you," because it's just not worth it for them. He's going to go to a team like Carolina, who needs a quarterback and doesn't have a good supporting cast around him, and they're just going to bring him in. He's going to flop again. And it's the same thing we saw with Sam Darnold. It's the same thing we see with every single young quarterback. Mitch Trubisky was one this season. That's Zach Wilson's potential, or that's his future here. That's just what it feels like.
yeah, Zach Wilson's definitely going to be on the backup road sometime soon, which is, I mean, hey, when you take a look back and see who he played in college, this should have kind of been a circumstance that you weren't really surprised of happening
Yeah.
with his career. Yeah, he played nobody back in college.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely true. Coastal
But
Carolina was the hardest team.
yeah, and they had what their 2 year run of being somewhat evident.
Yeah, and it's
So
nothing after.
yeah, so I mean, other than the Cowboys Texans game today, which ended in a way that I don't think a lot of people thought was going to be that close, we kind of covered every 1 p.m. game today. We have
Yeah,
anything
Cowboys
else to?
overrated. That's all. Cowboys overrated. Their defense isn't that good. They run up the score to make the point differentials crazy and make the stats look better. That's what. And the people that don't watch the games love to talk about Dallas. Love to talk about Dallas, man. You go on the morning shows and listen to how they talk about Dallas. Dallas is the best team in the league. Their point differential on defense. You hear these. They get so hyped up and talk about Dallas, and they bring up a lot of statistics because that's what they can find. Watch the games. Look at the talent positions on Dallas. Their interior their D line in general is not that great. It's Micah Parsons and then a bunch of average players that can beat decent O linemen. I don't think they've ever gotten pressure against the Eagles. This iteration of the Dallas Cowboys has not even gotten pressure against a good line offensive line like the Eagles. Then you look at their linebacking core. Okay, You know, LVE is okay. They got Keanu Neal playing linebacker. Cool, that's cool. Then you've got the worst secondary in football, in my opinion. Not the worst, but like it's fairly close. They're losing guys in their secondary, and it's not very good. So I think that this defense has been so great statistically so far this season. They got exposed today, and I feel like they're about to start falling off a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm looking to see who the Cowboys play the rest of the season. I know they have one more game against the Eagles. Um, yeah, they have the Jaguars, the Eagles, the Titans, and Washington as their next four games. They play in Jacksonville. I think that'll be a closer game than a lot of people are expecting. They play Eagles New Year's Eve in Jerry World, where I think it'll be a good game, but I think the Eagles come out on top. And and then the Titans versus Commanders, where that really just depends on seeding at that point, those last two games. But, as you said, I don't see this team really doing anything in the playoffs. Dallas will never scare me.
Can we talk about the teams that they've beaten, man? The Giants, the Commanders, the Rams, the Lions when they were literally god awful. And this great defense, this all-time great defense, let up 30 points to the Bears in a loss, or in a win, I should say. They beat the Vikings, who like, all right, man. They just okay, cool. It's the Vikings. They're 10-2 and they're awesome, but like, no, they're not. They're a
For
very
the Vikings.
fraudulent 10-2 team. Then they beat the Giants again, and then they beat the Colts and the Texans. Those outside of the Vikings, which separate that Vikings game, that might just be the list of the worst teams in the league. Texans, yeah. Colts, pretty close. Bears, I think so. I mean, Giants, I think that they've outperformed their record, but I don't think they're very good. And then Commanders are another team that's outperformed their record. And then the Rams, who are literally a bottom three team. So this is not a season that's been super dominant by the Cowboys, but yet people like to come out, or people are coming out here and saying that they have the best defense in the NFL, and that ESPN last week said that they have a 50% chance to go to the Super Bowl. What the
They
fuck are you watching? What the
yeah,
fuck is ESPN watching, man?
they are ranked still the highest percent chance to win the Super Bowl and make the Super Bowl. And the Eagles, again, this is not even biased right now. I mean, the Eagles have the fourth best chance to make the Super Bowl according to ESPN right
Screw
now.
the Eagles. Like if the Chiefs aren't higher, don't have higher odds than the Cowboys, then this whatever system that you're using to calculate your odds needs to just get thrown in the trash, man. Like it just needs to get thrown out. Delete the software. Try again. And if it's a person doing it, delegate them to a new role. They don't fit that job. They can't be making up those percentages. It's not working. It's
That's
not
what
adding up.
ESPN does do. They will always be Cowboys fans till the day they die. ESPN is kings of overrating Dallas sports, just
I don't
big
even think that
sports
they're
teams in general.
It's funny. I don't even think that they're Dallas fans. I think that they are entertainment. They're attention fans. That's what the market is attention. And what do they have? They have me and you sitting here talking about it. And I know damn well that I quote tweeted that post on Twitter that was talking about Dallas at 50%. And I said this is ridiculous and for these reasons. But all that is to them is another retweet. So look, at the end of the day, who's really winning in this conversation? It's ESPN, but look, I'll say my piece.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see at the end of the season what really happens, but I think I'm excited. I cannot wait till the playoff seedings are final because that'll be really fun to decide just who we really think is a top dog or not. Because right now, between Minnesota and Dallas, I mean, I don't know who's the better team. I guess I'd give Dallas
Dallas.
the edge a little bit
Mm-hmm.
just because of their
Well, they
defense. I'd do it.
they did just kill him 40-3.
Yeah, that is true. But I'd say a little bit of bias in me. I just hate Dallas. Fuck
Yeah,
Dallas. But like,
yeah, me too. But I think it's genuinely fair. I don't think that the points are that far off. This is a team that lost to the Packers. This team is not that great. They don't move me, man. They really don't.
I mean, Minnesota today, even. I mean, we talked about it last week. I mean, that reference that their defensive coordinator made, that just did not move me the right way. I mean, when your quote about your defense is, it might not be pretty, but we sometimes get the job done when they make it to the red zone. and then just see what the Lions did today. An offense that kind of finally has found their rhythm a little bit. They got Williamson back, and shout out to him too. First touchdown for this first reception today, which was pretty awesome. And it just what's the word? Exposed that secondary so hard today. And going into the playoffs, I just don't know what this Vikings defense expects.
How many times have we said that you can't start Patrick Peterson as your cornerback one in 2022 on this podcast? Like it's been like every week.
It's so bad.
You can't do it. Not in 2022. I love Pat Pete. You cannot do it. Love the man. Can't do it.
It's just crazy. Like, just stop going out there and signing 32-year-olds to play cornerback. Like, that's just like what it should
It's not
be.
gonna work. It's just not, it never will again. Like
I mean,
the Patrick Robinson or the Pat Robinson contract was like, all right, man, cool. You just figure it out from here.
one guy that I really like to see, like, again, absolute. Well, it's just funny. I have nothing against him, but Chris Harris on the Saints this year, he's getting absolutely carved this year by like just younger wide receivers. You just cannot stay up with these guys, and I'm just like, you can't find a fast 24
You
year
can, yeah,
four
you
year
can't
old
find a
right out of
young guy to
college.
get cooked.
Like, yeah, like just
I'm sure Michael
maybe
Jaquette's out there. He had that one game against DeAndre Hopkins.
yeah, like there's always like that. There's the one guy maybe who's 24 years old who was overlooked, but man, I'd rather throw him out there than the 34-year-old who was good 6 years ago and was playing with Andre
Who's been
Johnson.
literally cooked for like 5 seasons at this point.
It's just funny to see. It's always something fun to watch. It's like it's like the meme of the month or sports meme of the month with the Jason Tatum and Haslam. Like when he's right on him, it's like, what are we doing here, brother? Like, let's just
Mm-hmm.
knock this off. It's always fun to see that though.
Yeah,
Um, but right now we have, man, Brock Purdy. They're killing the Bucks right now. They're up by 21 points. 21
seriously.
0.
Wow. We might have to. We're definitely gonna have to talk about that on our Monday episode because, damn, that Brock Purdy, is he better than Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't
Is
know,
he
man.
better than Tom Brady? 35 yards, 6 for 13 right now.
Is
Jesus.
is Brock Purdy better than Tom Brady? That's the question. All right, let us know down in the comments, guys. We're gonna have to figure that one out.
Jesus. I mean, Tampa Bay, man, they just fell off a cliff. I mean, now that you see, what do you think Tom Brady's going to do next year? Does he come back for one more year? At this
No,
point, it's just getting
I don't think
sad.
so. But
Yeah.
we're running out of time a bit here, so we're gonna have to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, nothing else to say right now.
Nah, I'm all good. Family's here. I'm about to go out and eat dinner, so I'm
No, enjoy your dinner, sir.
getting the
Well, guys,
summoning.
again, the summoning. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today at the CCSN podcast. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at CCSN Sports. On Twitter for both of us, I'm Chris at CCSN and Chase is Chase at CCSN. Guys, thank you again, and we'll see you soon.